Good day and welcome to the Papyrus Global TV World News, your trusted source for breaking and in-depth international reporting from across the globe. I am Christiana Babayo, and here are the top stories making headlines today. From major geopolitical shifts to economic developments and elections shaping the future, tonight's bulletin brings you the most significant global news of the day. We begin with these headline developments and then bring you further updates from around the world. President Donald Trump signals possible deployment of a second U.S. aircraft carrier to the Middle East as Washington and Tehran prepare for renewed diplomatic talks amid rising regional tensions. Major disruption looms across European air travel as German pilots call a strike at Lufthansa's core airline, threatening widespread flight cancellations. Indonesia faces a critical economic crossroads, with analysts warning the country is nearing a point of no return as it pushes ahead with ambitious growth and spending plans. China turns to artificial intelligence in its anti-corruption drive, deploying advanced systems to monitor public bidding and government contracts nationwide. And now the news in full. European travel disruption ahead. A major pilots' union in Germany has called for a 24-hour strike at Lufthansa's core airline and its cargo arm set to begin today, 12 February. The union, Vereinigung Cockpit, says it is protesting pension reforms and compensation disputes, raising the likelihood of widespread flight cancellations and delays across Europe. Passenger groups and travel operators are already warning that travelers should adjust plans and expect significant disruptions during one of the busiest travel periods of the year. Lufthansa management has yet to issue a final response, but officials indicate negotiations will continue up to the strike deadline. Indonesia's government is being urged to reconsider its ambitious growth and spending strategy, even as markets reel from volatility tied to these plans. Under President Prabowo Subianto's leadership, Jakarta has doubled down on policies aimed at rapid industrial and infrastructure expansion. However, analysts note that while growth targets remain lofty, global financial agencies have expressed concern over market instability and fiscal sustainability. Critics say Indonesia risks reaching a point of no return if certain structural reforms are not made promptly, a situation that could shape the country's long-term economic trajectory. In South Asia, Bangladesh is poised for a crucial parliamentary election on 12 February, featuring a bitter contest between two major political coalitions. With 128 million eligible voters, the election is viewed as pivotal for democratic progress and regional stability. Political observers say the outcome could influence future policies on governance, economic strategy, and Bangladesh's position in global trade and investment. Both sides are campaigning intensively with public interest exceptionally high in what many see as a defining vote for the nation's next chapter. President Donald Trump says the United States is considering deploying a second aircraft carrier to the Middle East as Washington and Tehran prepare for renewed diplomatic talks aimed at averting escalation in the region. Trump's comment followed a recent round of negotiations held with Omani mediation, while the diplomacy reflects a willingness to continue dialogue with Iran on nuclear and security concerns. The president warned that tougher actions could follow if progress stalls. The potential carrier deployment highlights ongoing tensions in a region critical to global oil markets and geopolitical stability. China is deploying artificial intelligence tools to monitor public bidding and tender processes, aiming to detect corruption and irregularities in government contracting. Officials say the AI will help flag suspicious activity early, strengthen oversight, and support legal enforcement. Critics, however, caution about possible privacy implications and algorithmic bias if human review mechanisms are not properly balanced. In a major tech industry development, Apple and Google have reached an agreement with British regulators to overhaul key mobile app store policies. The deal aims to boost fair access for developers, increase transparency in rankings and reviews, and lower barriers to entry for competing software. Regulators hailed the move as a meaningful step towards more competitive digital markets, and developers worldwide are watching closely to see how similar reforms might ripple across other jurisdictions. Global gold prices fell more than 1% as investors anticipated key US jobs and inflation data due this week, results that could shape monetary policy and market directions. Analysts say the softer gold movement reflects a consolidation ahead of crucial economic signals, with traders eager for clarity on interest rate and growth prospects. China has unveiled a new phase in its long-running anti-corruption campaign, announcing the deployment of artificial intelligence systems to monitor public procurement bidding and government contracting processes. According to Chinese authorities, the AI tools are designed to identify irregular bidding patterns, inflated pricing, repeated vendor favoritism, and unexplained contract approvals across government departments. Officials say the technology will allow regulators to detect suspicious activity before funds are disbursed, marking a shift from reactive enforcement to predictive oversight. The move reflects Beijing's broader strategy of integrating advanced technology into governance and public administration. China has previously used AI for facial recognition, traffic management, and public security, but this marks one of the most expensive uses of the technology in financial oversight. Supporters argue the system could significantly reduce corruption in public spending, increase transparency, and restore public confidence. However, critics and digital rights advocates warn that heavy reliance on algorithmic decision making raises concerns about privacy, due process, and accountability, particularly if citizens or companies are flagged without clear human review. As China continues to push technological governance, the world is watching closely to see whether AI becomes a global model for fighting corruption or a cautionary tale. Two of the world's most powerful technology companies, Apple and Google, have agreed to significant changes to their mobile app store policies following pressure from UK regulators. The agreement is aimed at improving fairness for app developers by increasing transparency in app rankings, clarifying review processes, and reviewing barriers for competing services. For years, developers have accused major app platforms of favoring their own services while charging high commissions on in-app purchases. Regulators say the changes are a step toward restoring competition in the digital marketplace, where a small number of companies control access to billions of users worldwide. Technology analysts note that while the reforms that apply directly to the UK, they could have global ripple effects as regulators in Europe, Asia, and North America pursue similar actions. For consumers, the changes may lead to more app choices, lower prices, and greater innovation. For Apple and Google, the agreement reflects a growing reality. The era of unchecked digital dominance is facing regulatory limits. Global gold prices slipped today as investors paused ahead of key economic data expected from the United States later this week. Market participants are closely watching upcoming inflation and employment figures, which could influence interest rate policy under the administration of President Donald Trump. Gold is traditionally seen as a safe haven asset during economic uncertainty, but analysts say recent movements reflect caution rather than panic. A stronger US dollar and expectations of tighter monetary policy have also weighed on gold prices. Financial experts note that the metal's long-term outlook remains tied to geopolitical risk, inflation trends, and central bank decisions. As global markets remain sensitive to policy signals from Washington, gold continues to serve as a barometer of investor confidence. Luxury retail giant Saks Global has announced the closure of 9 additional stores as part of an ongoing restructuring process linked to bankruptcy proceedings. The decision underscores the continued challenges facing traditional brick-and-mortar retail, even in the high-end fashion sector. Consumer behavior has shifted sharply toward online shopping, forcing legacy brands to rethink their business models. Retail analysts say the closures reflect a broader transformation across the global retail industry, where physical stores are increasingly used as brand experiences rather than primary sales channels. Employees affected by the closures face uncertainty, while industry observers warn that further consolidation may follow. The SARS move highlights how even iconic brands are not immune to economic pressures and evolving consumer habits. Finally, tonight, global events continue to reflect a world balancing diplomacy, protests, and shared observances. Today marks the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, recognized by the United Nations to promote equal access to scientific education and careers. Across continents, governments, universities, and organizations held events highlighting the role of women in innovation, research, and technological advancement. Meanwhile, protests were reported in parts of Australia in response to international diplomatic visits, reflecting ongoing global debates over Middle East policy and international alliances. In Europe, renewed calls for humanitarian pauses in ongoing conflicts have added pressure on global leaders to prioritize diplomacy over escalation. Together, these developments underscore the interconnected nature of today's world, where science, politics, protest, and diplomacy unfold simultaneously across borders. And that is the Papyrus Global TV World News for today, Thursday, the 12th of February 2026. Thank you for joining us for comprehensive, verified, and global coverage of these stories shaping our world. For continuous updates, breaking news alerts, and in-depth analysis, stay connected with the Papyrus Global TV on thepapyrusdaily.com. I am Christiana Babayo. From all of us here, good night and stay informed.